history, so welcome back to my channel. First off, I want to apologize just in case you're hearing nature sounds in the background of this, but it's really warm today and I need to film in front of an open window and I have the camera literally in the window, so it is what it is. There might be like a rooster crowing sometimes or like birds chirping. This is what I got to work with, so here we are. Anyway, so today I wanted to finally do my March wrap up because I have literally been procrastinating on doing this for the longest time because I have so many things to talk about and I needed to do like graphs for the stats and things like that, so I've just been putting it off for whatever reason. Well, I just gave you a bunch of reasons, but anyway, today I'm finally doing it and I have literally 20 minutes to film, so I am so on top of my life. It's crazy. So I have some stats on my phone, so let me tell you those. This month I read 15 books in total. In terms of ratings, I ended up DNFing one book without actually rating it. I have 0 1 stars, 1 2 star, 4 3 stars, 4 4 stars, and 5 5 stars. So it was a crazy good reading month. Everything went super well and I'm really pleased with it. Genre-wise, I had a lot of mysteries in it, obviously, because it was March Mystery Madness, for which I've already done a wrap-up, so if you want to watch it, I'll link it in the cards. But I read 6 mystery novels, 2 YA fantasies, 1 nonfiction, 1 memoir, 3 science fiction novels, 1 myth retelling, and 1 historical fiction / literary fiction novel. In total, I read 5,339 pages this month, which comes to an average of 172 per day. I think that's absolutely crazy. Usually I'm just under 4,000, at least the last 2 months I was, so that's really good. The books were on average 355 pages long and the average rating was 3.9 stars. In terms of settings, I had 2 books set in Australia, 2 in England, 3 in space, and then 1 each in Yugoslavia, 1 fantasy setting in Japan, Canada, US, Vietnam, Greece, and Italy. So it's all over the place, which I think is awesome. For release years, I had 1 in 1934, 1 in 1989, 12 between 2000 and 2017, and 1 in 2018. 8 of the authors were new to me and 7 were not. And then also 8 of the books I would consider fairly popular and 7 more obscure. And I think that was everything in terms of stats. I hope I didn't forget anything important, but now let's just jump right into the video. The book I DNF'd this month was The Prague Cemetery by Umberto Eco. This was one of my Project TBR books for the year, and the first time I read it, I got to like page 105 and then just stopped. And now I tried reading it again and I got to page like 110 and then stopped because I just could not stand this book anymore. I didn't give it a rating because I just feel like I am not the audience for this, and it was probably no fault of the book and more my own fault for not knowing enough of the historical background of this to fully, to properly, comprehend and to properly work with the material. Basically, this book is about a man that is supposed to be behind all of the conspiracies and political things happening in Europe in the 1800s, and because I don't know many of these things, it's really difficult to connect to this type of story. I found it quite humorous at first because there's so much overt racism, like there's so much anti-Semitism and racism, but it's written in a way that's making fun of it and showing how ridiculous it is, which I really liked. But beyond that, I just couldn't get it into the book. I kept drifting off. There wasn't much of a plot, and I mean, I'm over 100 pages into it and there's not much that happened, and I just didn't want to make myself trudge through this just to hopefully get something out of it. I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was for me, and I'm really sad about it, but it just didn't work for me. My 2-star read of the month was The Bells by Daniel Clayton. This is a YA fantasy, and I have done an extensive review video for it because it was a 2018 release, so I will link it in the cards for you to watch, and I won't be talking about it anymore here. Suffice it to say that it was very disappointing for me. As I said, I have 3 3-star reads this month, and all 3 of them I've talked about in previous videos. The first is The Dry by Jane Harper, which was a mystery novel that I talked about in my March Mystery Madness wrap-up, as well as this Detective Conan manga adaptation for a Conan movie. Both of these I talked about in that video. And my last 3-star read was Morning Star by Pierce Brown, the third book in the Red Rising trilogy, and I have also done a separate review for this trilogy that I will link as well for you to check out. My last 3-star was The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. This was a reread that I'd been meaning to do because I forgot everything that happened in this book, and book 3 came out last year and I bought it but still haven't read it yet, so this was supposed to be like, you know, supposed to get me back into the series. And the first time I read this, I gave it 5 stars. Sorry, I really loved it. This time I just couldn't connect with it anymore. I was reading it and I felt like so disconnected from the story and from the characters. There wasn't a relationship going between us anymore, which sounds weird, but like the first time I read it, I was super invested, and this time I just couldn't get myself to care. I thought there was very little that actually happened in this book. It's very much a filler, I would say. But because it was a reread, it might just be that I still knew a little too much of what was going on and what was going to happen to fully get into it. So I'll still give the third book a go, but I feel like I am losing interest in the series slowly, which is sad because I really enjoyed it when I read it for the first time. In terms of my 4-star reads, I have also already wrapped all of these up, so we're just gonna mention them quickly. The first is Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. Then we also have Miss Fran Fisher Investigates by Kerry Greenwood, Still Life by Louise Penny, and The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, another TBR shelf Project TBR read. All of these are talked about in my March Mystery Madness wrap-up, so be sure to go and watch it if you want to hear my thoughts on these books. I should do more individual videos throughout the month so that by the wrap-up I can just be like, already talked about this, already talked about that, and the wrap-up's gonna be so much quicker to film and edit and watch. That was super fast, and we're already at my 5-star reads. The first 2 I also already talked about in a video because they're Red Rising and Golden Sun by Pierce Brown, book 1 and 2 in the Red Rising trilogy, and as I said, I have filmed an individual review for this entire trilogy that you should go watch if you want to know my thoughts and feelings. But suffice it to say, obviously these 2 books are amazing. 3 more books to talk about, and these I haven't actually mentioned before, so it's finally getting exciting. The first is The Best We Could Do by Thi Bui. This is a graphic memoir that was written by the author. The author actually escaped with her family from Vietnam during the war, and this details basically her life and that of her family, and like how they made this journey and how it affected them, and how it's really difficult for an immigrant family because there's such a disconnect between generations because they have such completely different experiences. And it just was so fascinating that way and super, super interesting to read. Dropping my books. I love the art style in this. I think it is absolutely gorgeous and really, really well drawn, really well put together, and I had to put this book down at times because I was getting so emotional and because it was kind of hard to read at times because obviously pretty horrible things happened to this family at times. So I don't know, I just feel like more people should read this. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is also non-fiction, and that is Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI by David Grann. Holy shit, this book just had me so hooked. I didn't want to put it down. I was telling my boyfriend, like when he came over, I was like, I'm in the middle of a scene right now that is so suspenseful. I think you should go. I think you need to leave again because I need to keep reading. That's how serious this was, right? This book is following the 1920s murder crisis that befell the Osage Indians, or Native Americans I should say. There were lots of people randomly getting killed among the tribe members, and no one really knew why, and then they started figuring out that it was because they wanted their right to the oil reserves that were at underneath the reservoir. And eventually the newly formed FBI got involved in the investigations because nothing was ever being turned up, like no culprit was found for such a long time, and people kept dying and dying, and it was getting completely out of hand. That whole thing happened in like the 1920s, 30s, so David Grann talks about this case, and then also talks about how he now went back to this territory and talked to the like relatives of the people that died or were like involved in the situation, and finds out that some things were still not even discovered by the FBI at the time. So it's absolutely fascinating. It's absolutely terrifying because the treatment of the Native Americans in the 1920s was absolutely atrocious, and it made me so mad. And I think that is like the main emotion I felt while reading the book, was just pure anger at how someone could treat another human being like such garbage. So many people died, and so many people were harmed, and families were affected by this, and it's completely crazy and atrocious that not more people are talking about this. So get this book, it is everything. Already a favorite of 2018, and I loved it so much. I also just want to mention that like I like the writing style of this a lot, because it's told as like a story, like a crime story where you don't know who did it from the beginning. Like it's kept a secret from you, like as the investigation progresses you find out the things that they find out, and it's not just like told you from the beginning, which I really liked because it just added this element of suspense and terror. And I just adored everything about this book. So that's why I gave it 5 stars, and you need to read it 100%. And my last 5-star read of the month was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a Greek mythology retelling of the story of Achilles and Patroclus. And I mean, holy fuck. I read this book in 2 days and it broke my heart so many times. I loved how well we got to know the characters, how we connected with them. Like they seemed like real people to me, even though they were just like made up, and this was a retelling of that making up, but it was just, it felt so real, and I fell in love with them as people. I fell in love with them as a couple, because it's kind of disputed whether or not Achilles and Patroclus were like romantic, but this is with each other, but this definitely includes that in the book. So it's, their relationship is so beautiful and so tragic, and I was full on crying at the end, even though I knew how it was going to end. It just broke my heart. It was beautiful, and I can't wait to pick up Circe, which just came out I think this month. So love it. Everybody needs to read this. If you're at all interested in Greek mythology, you need to pick this up. And that is it for all 15 books that I managed to read in March. I'm sorry I couldn't talk about all of them in this video, but that's just because I don't really want to repeat myself. So if you want to know the rest, definitely check out my March Mystery Madness wrap-up, as well as my Red Rising trilogy review to put together the pieces of wrapping up that I did this month. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also let me know in the comments down below how your reading month went in March, and what was your favorite book that you read this month. For me, it's definitely a tie between Killers of the Flower Moon and The Song of Achilles, because I have no words, they're so good. I will see you very soon with another video. Have a lovely week. Bye!